Sylvanus Thayer, the men who made West Point. After my father finished doing the family tree, we found a relative that helped develop West Point. And he is known as the father of West Point. And I'm proud to be related. Here's the story according to AI. Sylvanus Thayer, often referred to as the father of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, played a pivotal role in shaping the institution and its educational standards. Here is a brief overview of his life and his contributions to West Point. Early life and education. 1. Sylvanus Thayer was born on June 9, 1785, in Braintree, Massachusetts, now Quincy. He came from a modest background and was the son of a farmer. 2. He attended Dartmouth College and graduated in 1807 with honors. Thayer initially pursued a career in civil engineering, but his life took a different turn when he received an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point in 1808. Career at West Point. 1. Thayer entered West Point as a cadet and later became an assistant professor of engineering. He excelled academically and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Corps of Engineers upon his graduation in 1808. 2. In 1817, Thayer returned to West Point as the superintendent of the academy. This appointment marked the beginning of his most significant contributions to the institution. 3. Thayer implemented a series of major reforms at West Point during his tenure as superintendent. These reforms included overhauling the curriculum to emphasize mathematics, engineering, and the sciences, establishing a strict code of discipline and conduct, improving the physical infrastructure of the academy, including the construction of new buildings and facilities, emphasizing the importance of character development and leadership. 4. Under Thayer's leadership, West Point evolved from a struggling institution into a prestigious military academy with a rigorous academic program. Legacy. 1. Sylvanus Thayer is often referred to as the father of the U.S. Military Academy due to his transformative influence on the institution. 2. His emphasis on engineering and scientific education laid the foundation for West Point's reputation for producing top-notch military engineers. 3. The term Thayer method is used to describe his educational philosophy, which emphasized hands-on learning, practical applications, and problem-solving skills. 4. Thayer's legacy extended beyond West Point. Many of his students went on to have distinguished military careers, and his educational principles influenced military academies worldwide. Later life. 1. After leaving West Point in 1833, Thayer continued to serve in the U.S. Army, reaching the rank of colonel. 2. He spent several years overseeing engineering projects, including fortifications and coastal defenses. 3. Sylvanus Thayer passed away on September 7, 1872, in Braintree, Massachusetts, leaving behind a lasting legacy of educational reform and military excellence. Sylvanus Thayer's contributions to West Point and the U.S. military education system had a profound and enduring impact. His dedication to academic excellence, discipline, and character development helped shape the institution into what it is today, and his influence is still felt in the education and training of future military leaders. West Point owes its distinctive character mainly to one man. He was Sylvanus Thayer, who transformed the country's new military academy from a marginal and shaky enterprise into a school whose supremacy in the fields of science and engineering was unchallenged in America for some 40 years. Thayer was born in Braintree, Massachusetts, in 1785, and was educated at Dartmouth and, later, at West Point, where he spent a postgraduate year before joining the Corps of Engineers as a second lieutenant. A close student of Napoleon's campaigns, and an admirer of Napoleon's efforts to put the military arts on a scientific footing, Thayer was picked by the army, in 1815, to go to France, with orders to buy badly needed books, maps, and equipment for West Point, and to see what Americans could learn from France's famous military schools. 2 years later, President Monroe decided to remove West Point's superintendent, a touchy martinet named Alden Partridge, and Thayer was a logical choice to succeed him. When Thayer took up his new post in August 1817, he found the academy in a state of near anarchy. Convinced that his professors were conspiring against him, Partridge had placed them under arrest and was teaching all courses himself. Thayer sent the professors back to their classrooms, dismissed more than 40 cadets whom he found unqualified. According to legend, they included one cadet who was 40 years old and had a wife and family, and another who had only one arm, and disabused those who were allowed to remain at West Point of the erroneous and unmilitary notion that they had a right to intrude their views and opinions with respect to the conduct of the academic Y. Other changes quickly followed. In the interest of egalitarianism, Thayer forbade cadets to bring any money with them when they came to West Point, or to send for money from their families. Henceforth, rich and poor alike would have to get along on their $18 monthly pay. He established a department of tactics, whose officers were to be responsible, as they still are today, for the discipline, bearing, and military instruction of the cadets. The cadets were organized into companies, each with its own cadet officers. In the classroom, cadets were required to recite daily, and were graded on each recitation. At the same time, Thayer recruited a distinguished faculty whose students were soon in demand as canal and railroad builders, and as presidents and deans of the newer scientific and engineering schools, most of them modeled on West Point, that sprang up later in the century. A reserved and austere man, a bachelor with no known vices, Thayer exemplified the soldierly virtues he tried to instill in his cadets. Throughout the day, a West Point historian has written, he was always prompt, always courteous, and always I looked as if he had just shaved, bathed, and dressed. He seemed to know everything about every cadet, an impression he cultivated by keeping up-to-date abstracts of each cadet's debts, demerits, and grades. When a cadet came to him to ask, for example, for an advance on his pay in order to buy a new coat, Thayer would glance surreptitiously into the depths of his huge desk and say, "Sir, you are in debt $35.42, and will have to make do with the coat you have." He was a stern disciplinarian, but a fair one. In 1832, a cadet named Ariel Norris, who had been dismissed from West Point for being absent without leave, was reinstated after he had appealed directly to President Andrew Jackson. Upset by this and other incidents of what seemed to him to be intolerable political interference, Thayer sent in his resignation. The faculty was dismayed, and wanted to honor him on his departure. But Thayer was determined to allow no demonstration that might be interpreted as a disloyal attack on the president, and he refused even to let anyone know when he planned to leave the academy. One evening in the summer of 1833 he strolled down to the steamboat dock with a group of officers, and when the downriver boat stopped, he quickly shook hands all around and stepped aboard. Although he stayed in the Army for 25 more years, serving briefly as Chief of the Corps of Engineers at the ripe age of 72, he never laid eyes on West Point again.